I just thought I'd take a minute and introduce myself. So for those of you who don't know who I am, you say, who is this person? My name's Melinda McLaughlin. I've been working on First Nation reserve lands for 15 years. I worked with and that's all I do for my business, is I work on reserve. So my whole experience in terms of right from school has been working with First Nation communities who have taught me a lot, and working with lots of different various INAC staff who have also taught me a lot. So I'm a great recipient of a varied and wide range of knowledge from lots of different perspectives. I've benefited greatly from this over the years, and in so I have attempted to try to assimilate and compile lots of that knowledge into something meaningful that I can share with people in this room. Hopefully I'm able to offer you some views about what goes on reserve, as well as what I know goes on within the department, and you guys can also hopefully share and enlighten me. All right, so here's another site, and this is kind of particular to more the western provinces. This is an oil and gas well site, so this is more a western eastern thing, because I think they have stuff like this in the east too. This is a council member who took me out to this particular site, and he said, you know, I don't get it. There's no well here anymore. They took the wellhead away, and this site hasn't had any grass or vegetation. It's not growing into the meadow that I thought it would for hunting. He says, so what's going on? So we went out and took a look, and of course it's a little difficult to see. There is a geomembrane here that you can see. There's a liner beneath this site. This is imported fill material that they brought in. There's some tamarack and black spruce and some things that kind of like wet areas. So it is a wet area, so they laid a geomembrane down and threw a bunch of dirt on it and built it up and put a wellhead. However, turns out that it was a lot cheaper for the oil company to give the First Nation $2,000 or $3,000 a year to lease that land and not reclaim it. So the nation, you know, because you have new councils coming in and out, this is probably a couple of elections later, and the council's going, so what's with this? So we investigated it, and that's what we found out. So I said, you know, you should send a letter to the company and let them know that you would prefer to have your land reclaimed rather than get your $2,000 check per year. So that's what they did. But you know, this is the type of stuff that we identified. This, of course, is the responsibility of Indian Oil and Gas Canada with the oil and gas company that had undertaken the lease. So it wasn't the responsibility of the nation at all. And they were now given some tools or some mechanisms to go ahead and have this site addressed and let it. What was the response to the issues inventory? You know what? INAC went, okay, now we know what's going on. Holy cow, what do we do? Obviously, the most pressing issues were to deal with the contaminated sites right away. Owner-operator responsibilities had to be determined, because you have to figure out who's responsible for a site. Typically, it happened at this time that INAC was responsible for everything. So they got stuck with the bill for most things in most cases, because a lot of the times the sites that were found that were fuel storage related were abandoned. So people would say, oh, I don't know who owned that gas station. And of course everyone knew. And then INAC had to pay for it, because there was no land tenure, there was no lease, there was no permit. There was nothing to trace the origin of that site, who owned it or operated or anything. So of course INAC got stuck with the bill. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So owner-operator responsibilities have to be defined, but only if you can find them. Strategies for pollution prevention, it was recognized you had to have something in place to prevent this stuff from happening again. And you had to do it with the community. The community had to buy into the fact that this needed to be prevented. All of these things would help to demonstrate due diligence, which is what the department was looking for at this time. Obviously, something had to be done about this contaminated sites. There was some discussion about owner-operator responsibilities, and the primary issue around that, of course, was the fact that there was no land tenure, no permits, no agreements, and they're what we call buck-she arrangements. Have you guys heard that term yet?
Yeah.
No. Okay, so a buck-she arrangement is a very common term where we have situations where there are facilities or businesses set up that don't have land tenure, that don't have any sort of BCR or formalized agreement. And we call them Bakshi arrangements because it's very difficult to not only identify the owner-operator, but to have them adhere to any sort of standard. So those are Bakshi arrangements. Those came up a lot in the issues inventory. So one of the interesting things that came out as a result of that was that Lands made a commitment to, as part of the issues inventory and the stewardship strategy, to try to encourage First Nations to get land tenure whenever possible. So it's difficult though, because it's so common to have First Nations not do things with land tenure because it's chief and council, it's their land base, but it's for their protection as well as the community's protection and INAC's protection that they have some sort of land tenure to formalize those agreements so that people can be held accountable. Right? So anyways, because all sectors were recognized through the issues inventory to be contributing to the degradation, environmental degradation or activities that contribute to it, we had economic development initiatives, we had education, we had lands, we had capital, we had tech services, we had, of course, third parties, which sometimes were, just people that live close to the reserve would use land for development and not have a formal arrangement. But it was all the sectors at INAC that had an opportunity to become involved in the prevention of some of these environmental issues, and that's why the stewardship strategy was created. So all of the sectors from across Canada came together in Toronto, and we had all these sectors came together and developed their own strategy on how to reduce the risk to the environment by their own activities, and what they developed was the environmental stewardship strategy. And they identified the goals and the objectives of the strategy conceptually. So they left a 2 or 3 day workshop in Toronto with a concept called the Environmental Stewardship Strategy, and that's what we are still using today, and it keeps growing and evolving as time passes. What is it? It's an intersectoral plan of action. It's where all the sectors have said, yeah, we all have responsibilities, we recognize that. Let's make sure that we plan our activities and we consider sustainable development and environmental management in every decision we make. So the stewardship strategy is really a response to SDS, to Sustainable Development Strategy. This is this department's SDS as of 1990 or 2000, whatever it was that it came about, 2001. The whole focus, of course, is at the end of the day is to protect the health and well-being of the residents on reserve, the First Nation community members. And in order to do that, definitely there had to be some protection measures in place. So as a result of the stewardship strategy, INAC was going to be able to demonstrate some sort of level of due diligence and reduce their own liability, because INAC was getting lots and lots and lots of bills as a result of the issues inventory for all of these abandoned orphan sites. Lots of things that Public Works had initiated and, like government departments had initiated and started, so rightly so, it was suitable that there had to be some appropriate follow-up. So the mandate of HQ and the regional environment units was also one of the things that came out as a result of the stewardship strategy. And this is really important because there is lots of confusion across the country as to what it is the environment unit is supposed to do. They're supposed to provide expert advice, functional guidance, training, and make sure people are aware of their environmental legislative obligations, roll out new policies and directives, make sure people know what they are, support environmental management processes through the development of those policies and procedures, and program management and information management to promote environmental performance and due diligence.